I don't know about you, but I'm still not over the Ohio State loss. Who knows when or if I'll ever get over it. But there were some positives to take away from that game, and hopefully Notre Dame will be able to build off them going forward. That's all coming up in today's edition of Locked On Irish.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 26th, and thank you for making this your first listen of the day. I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I graduated from Notre Dame in 2018 and have been covering college football as a producer ever since, first for ESPN and now for Fox Sports. This episode of Locked On Irish is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. The everyday listeners know that on Tuesdays, I have my old co-host, Luke Smith, come on the show to put the finishing touches on the previous game by going over the three things we liked and didn't like from Saturday. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the things that we didn't like from the Ohio State game for a long, long time. But there were some good things that happened, and it's time that we address them. I'll admit, I was really down when I taped yesterday's episode because that was my genuine, raw reaction to Notre Dame's gutting loss to Ohio State. But today is more positive, and tomorrow I'll start previewing the game against the 17th-ranked Duke Blue Devils because it's going to be a huge game for this team and this program. And to be honest, I think that might be the best thing possible for this Irish team as they try to bounce back after the loss. So be on the lookout for that tomorrow. And once you're finished listening to this one, go and listen to Monday's recap episode if you have not already, because misery loves company. And hopefully these episodes help you get through it. I know they've been beneficial for me, but now let's talk to Luke. Luke Smith is back with me here. And before we get into our three things, I feel like we need a wellness check. How are you holding up?
I'm pretty furious still. In fact, at one point today, I did not catch myself. I straight up did throw a pen across my office when I thought of 3rd and 19. So, I kind of find myself getting angrier by the hour, but maybe this will help. We'll see.
So your emotions have turned into anger, not so much
They've
depression.
never shifted from anger. I've been pissed for about almost 48 hours now.
Yeah, I definitely feel that. I think at first I was most angry in the immediate aftermath. Then I was somewhat numb and just sort of depressed yesterday. But you're right. Now that more time has sunk in and rewatching the game back, seeing everything that went down, and just thinking about all the little things that could have gone Notre Dame's way, it's infuriating.
Yeah. Every break that could have gone Ohio State's way did go their way. And it's outrageous how that happened.
Okay. But even though we're starting off on a pretty negative note,
right.
the first thing I want to get into is the three things that we liked, because as bad as the result was, there were a lot of positive things that happened on the field for Notre Dame, in particular, a couple individual performances that we're going to get to, but it wasn't all bad. And I think it's time that we spotlight some of the really good things that we saw from that game. And why don't you lead us off?
It'll get lost to history, but Mitchell Evans pretty much turned into Michael Mayer for the night. He had 7 catches for 75 yards, including an incredible one-handed grab for a first down. He was really Notre Dame's number one weapon on offense, and he was open every play. I know there was some commentary out there that the receivers didn't do enough. No, he was just open, and that's just kind of what happened. But he carved up the Buckeye defense, and that was obviously the best game he's played in his career. I mean, he probably had, 3 or 4 catches in his career going into that game, if I had to guess, right?
Definitely single digits.
Yeah, so I feel like he went past his career total in that game alone. So really, really impressive game from him.
It was a very impressive game by him. He was targeted 7 times and had 7 catches. And that one-handed catch, I couldn't even believe it in the crowd. Seeing him go up and grab it, I don't even know if Michael Mayer had that in his bag. Sure, he had some one-handed catches, but that was so athletic. It really took me by surprise. And you're right. It was clear early on that Notre Dame's game plan from the passing perspective was to attack the middle of the field, because Ohio State had 2 safeties a lot, and the middle of the field was open. Unfortunately, Notre Dame wasn't able to break any deep downfield explosive passing plays. But if the defense is giving it to you, you might as well take it. And it also helps Notre Dame that Mitchell Evans wasn't really a part of the game plan, so they're able to use him, and he ended up getting a lot more snaps than Holden Staes. And that's really not something I would have expected just honestly 2 weeks ago.
It does make sense that he got more snaps, though, based on the way that the game plan was operated, just in terms of how often they ran the ball, too. He's a better blocker than Stays, so that makes sense on its face, too. But you're right. It, despite the fact they only scored 14 points, it does go to show you how this offense can hurt you in a variety of ways.
It really can. They have a lot of different playmakers out there, and every week, I do think one of the positive things that Jared Parker's done as the OC has structured each game plan based on what the opposing defense gives up, and Notre Dame has been able to take advantage of that. So I'm going to flip it over to the defensive side, and we're probably going to be going back and forth a little bit, talking offensive and defensive performances. But what an unbelievable game by Javonte Jean-Baptiste going up against his former team. I don't know if that was the best game he's ever played, but it was certainly the best game he's played in the Notre Dame uniform, and I think he was arguably the best player on Notre Dame's defense in that game. So for starters, he played a career-high 64 snaps on the defensive line, and he was running a lot. So that by itself, incredibly impressive. So he did that. He was tied for the team lead with 8 tackles. He had a quarterback hurry. He hit McCord twice, and he had 5 stops at or near the line of scrimmage. And I felt so bad for him, man. I think he was the last guy off the field for Notre Dame. He really gave it his all going up against his former team. Even on the last play of the game, he came from the opposite edge and actually got a hand on Ohio State's running back on the game-winning touchdown. So just a really gutting way for it to end. After playing such an amazing game, and I'm sure it meant so much to him, but I feel like he deserves a ton of credit for how he played, and I hope he's able to bounce back quickly. I hope he spent a lot of time in the cold tub after the game because it was a marathon for him.
Yeah, he's really seemed to be building his performance each week. He's been very good, and you're right, Saturday night was by far the best game he's played so far, and we expected him to show up on Saturday night. I don't know if we expected it quite to that level, but he played great. Like you said, he had 2 hits on McCord in a hurry, and it probably would have been more if the refs had any eyes and called any holds that entire game. So, yeah, really impressive performance from him, and what Notre Dame needed, to be frank.
There's been a lot of talk in the offseason about how Notre Dame approaches the transfer portal. For the most part, the guys that they have brought in have been incredible this season. And even though we didn't hear that much from him, Javonte Jean-Baptiste back in the spring, he has certainly come alive since the season started.
He totally has. And speaking of guys that came alive on Saturday night, you have to, and this is probably the biggest bright spot as far as I see it for just trajectory of this program. The freshman offensive skill players were huge on Saturday night. Jeremiah Love was just electric. He looks like a future star. He averaged 7.1 yards per carry, went for 57 yards on 8 carries. Ironically enough, he played so well, I feel like it almost screwed up with their game plan a little bit and caused them to go away from Audric Estime a little bit too much. We can get into that later, but that was still great to see. And, despite Bud Elliott's bizarre campaign against Notre Dame receivers, the freshman receivers, Rico Flores and Jaden Greathouse, were the guys that were spearheading that go-ahead drive. And Flores scored the touchdown ultimately. These guys are going to be around for at least the next 2 years. To have that type of production from freshman receivers in such a big game like that just hasn't really happened ever. And that was really, really great to see.
I thought one of the most impressive plays from any Notre Dame skill player in that game was Rico's catch on 3rd down when he caught it right at the line and was able to get the first down. And he took a hit from 2 defenders, but he put his body on the line, protected the football, and got drilled. And I remember during fall camp, the way that Notre Dame's players talked about Rico, everyone just said, he's a dog. And as a fan and someone who's not seeing him every day in practice, you're like, what does that mean? Like, what does he do on the field? It's stuff like that that shows you that dude is a dog. He was not afraid to get hit, not afraid to put his body on the line, and he got Notre Dame a critical first down. It wasn't the flashiest play, but from a wide receiver in a big-time spot, I was so impressed by that.
He really just plays his ass off in general, and this was, I know, the first game that you were able to go to in person this year. I think it comes through a lot more clear in person, even when he's motioning, just how hard he's going through, like how everything he does is he's playing his ass off. It's very intentional. And that's something that you don't see from freshmen that often. And that really comes through.
And another redshirt freshman too had a great game, Jadarian Price.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it almost you can make the case that in a way, maybe it came back to bite Notre Dame. But that was one thing during the game that I know a lot of people were like, where's Estimate? Where's Estimate? Where's Estimate? But like in the final moments, I get it. But throughout the better part of the second half, like it was Love and Price making the plays.
Oh, it totally was. And whether that was because Estime was off the field or not, whatever, that's besides the point. But those guys made plays. And I mean, we're like 2 inches away on a screen pass of talking about Jadarian Price as just putting the dagger in Ohio State. So, yeah, that was huge.
Going back to the defense, Notre Dame's cornerbacks showed and proved to everyone who was paying attention that they're elite. They played phenomenal football throughout that entire game. So I want to spotlight Cam Hart, Benjamin Morrison, and even Thomas Harper. Cam Hart, phenomenal game. He was only targeted 2 times. He gave up 1 catch for 10 yards. He had 3 tackles, and he went one-on-one with Marvin Harrison Jr., no safety help on a deep ball, and he was with him every single step of the way. Unbelievable play by him. Benjamin Morrison, we already knew that dude was probably going first or second round in the NFL draft. When he is up for the NFL draft after next season, we're going to see a lot of highlights from this game because he stuck to Marvin Harrison Jr. like glue. They tried targeting him 9 times. He did give up 4 catches, but only 39 yards. He had 2 PBUs, and he was responsible for covering Harrison Jr. for the better part of that game. He was unbelievable. And then third, Thomas Harper. He didn't have quite as good of a game as the other 2, but that's a pretty high standard. And I still thought he had a really solid game overall. He was targeted 8 times, gave up 5 catches for 54 yards, but he also added 5 tackles, 4 of which were solo. And with receivers like that, you're going to give up some pass plays. But overall, I was really, really impressed by what the Notre Dame cornerbacks did against the best receivers in the entire country.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're right. Hart really wasn't even targeted because he was playing so well, and Morrison was fantastic. First time, again, I've ever seen a refs review a play, and then after calling it holding, after the view, changing it to pass interference, because I guess you can do that now, idiots.
And then they didn't call the PI Enrico Flores when he literally decked him.
There is an epidemic on officials, but that's not what I'm here to, because that is actually not why the game played out like it did, but there is just an epidemic with poor officiating right now. But yeah, Morrison was fantastic, and it's funny. You don't hear anybody talking about how Marvin Harrison Jr. got bottled up, but apparently Notre Dame's receivers did. It's ridiculous. But yeah, not enough credit is being given there nationally to how well those guys played.
We'll be right back with Luke to talk more about Notre Dame's performance against Ohio State. But first, I want to tell you about Gametime. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Gametime is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for all the fun you'll have. If you're looking to go to the Notre Dame Duke game on Saturday, Gametime is the place for you because it is the fastest-growing ticketing app in the country for a reason. Get images of your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive, and you can buy tickets in a matter of seconds. 2 taps and you're set. Tickets are then sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email, and you can snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. What do you got next?
The offensive line. I would say the offensive line probably played their best game of the season, to be honest with you. And this is why this game is so frustrating, because so many points were left on the field. If you look at the success rate stuff, Notre Dame dominated in that. Dominated compared to Ohio State. Ohio State shouldn't have had a chance to win this game, frankly. And that's why it's so frustrating. Sam Hartman had ample time, wasn't sacked. Ohio State had really just 2 tackles for loss, and I wish Notre Dame had leaned into the strength a little bit more in 4th and short scenarios. I don't know why the rollout, obviously, that play action play has worked a bunch of times for them this year. So I don't hate that. I still wish you kind of go to your strength there and just run it up the gut. Sam Hartman got the first down there. I don't even know what we were doing there. And then the other one, I don't really know why we rushed that. It just didn't seem like you need to when you have that offensive line that's playing so well. And while I didn't hate the screen play, just the way that Notre Dame was running the ball on that last drive, I think you had some confidence that they were going to be able to continue doing that, and just leaning into that strength a little bit more might have been nice.
Yeah, and one of the things that has been sort of annoying to me in the post-game reaction and seeing some fans complain about the fact that every once in a while JT Tuimoloau got home, he made a play, especially on that screen pass, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't a perfect game from the offensive line, but considering the opponent, I thought they played really well for the vast majority of the game. And sometimes you're going to lose a rep when you're going up against a future NFL first-round pick. And Ohio
You might be a
State's
top 5 pick.
Yeah, exactly. It's like sometimes the expectations are so absurd from the fan base and even people who cover college football. Like, Ohio State's a really good team. And yeah, the offensive line lost some reps, but they also won a ton. And they set up a lot of great running lanes for Audric Esme, Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. You're right. I thought they played a really great game. And I think that was sort of the performance that we needed to see to now believe that they can dominate the opponents the rest of the way, because that's going to be the best defensive front Notre Dame faces for the rest of this regular season. They're going to have a tough matchup against Duke, for sure, but it's nowhere near what they just faced on Saturday against Ohio State. So despite the loss, and despite the fact that Ohio State did break through a couple times, I feel a lot better about the offensive line going forward based on what I saw on Saturday.
100%. I mean, they should be able to come out there against Duke and just push them around. I don't care how good. I know how good of a defensive coordinator or defensive mind, I should say, Mike Elko is, but it is freaking Duke. Push them around.
Okay, we'll get to Duke later. But on the last thing that I liked, I did want to give a shout out to the Notre Dame fan base who was in attendance for that game, because I've been to a bunch of games. I felt like, one, there was some red in that stadium. It was really not that much. What do you think the final percentage was?
I would say maybe like 25% Ohio State, maybe even less than that. But like no higher than 30. No higher than like 27%, I would say.
Yeah. I feel like 60,000 Notre Dame, 20,000 Ohio State, which on a game of this magnitude makes sense. In Ohio State, they've got a rabid
people are going to
fan base.
want to be there regardless. So, they're going to find a way in. You saw what I think the lowest price was going for like $900 a couple hours before kickoff or something like that. It's outrageous.
It really was. But I thought the Notre Dame fan base got loud, and that moment after that 4th and 1, when Notre Dame stopped and when Ohio State ran the end around, it was ear-piercingly loud. And there were certainly moments during the game, especially when Notre Dame was down 10-0. Like, I've heard some criticisms about how the fan base wasn't as engaged there. There was clearly some moments where the fan base was a little bit nervous, and that came through in the crowd noise. But the students were electric for the entire game. They were also... It was full. The student section was full like an hour before the game, which rarely ever happens. Usually the student section doesn't get full until like halfway through the first quarter because all the drunk kids from the tailgate are still stumbling in. They showed up early. They were ready to go. They brought it for the entire game, and I was just thoroughly impressed by the Notre Dame fan base.
I agree, and that's what makes this even more frustrating because you're right. That 4th down stop, I mean, I was jumping up and down after that. It was nuts. And
I almost
just
decked the dude in front of me.
Picturing what that should have been like, if not for just sheer incompetence, it would have been a scene for all time, and that got pissed away because we had 10 guys on the damn field.
Is that a good segue into the things we didn't like?
Yeah, it might be.
Why don't you lead us off?
I'm actually going to start with the kicking here. Listen, and this isn't totally fair because Spencer Schrader's been put in kind of just some weird field goal spots. Like, there haven't been, outside of the one he missed against Navy, there haven't been a ton of true chip shots. Like, they've all been kind of bombs, but Notre Dame absolutely had to have that field goal the other night, and it wasn't even freaking close. And he's less than a 50% kicker right now. I don't know if the moment was too big for him or what. I know that I saw today that they're switching out the holder now. So we'll see what the deal is there. Bryce McPherson is now going to hold because
like
Schrader's
that.
more comfortable with him.
Don't like that.
So that's a thing. But that absolutely cannot happen.
You're right. That was in my end zone, and the moment he kicked it, I'm like, no chance. Like, that's just not even close. And those points, Notre Dame needed every single one of them on Saturday. And in fairness to Spencer Schrader, when he when he has come in, it's usually an absolute bomb.
Right.
But
That's what I'm right.
he's 3-7 on the year, and he missed a chip shot against Navy. He missed this one against Ohio State. I don't know if I'd classify it as a chip shot, but it's one you simply got to have. And for a guy who we know can kick it so far and kick it so effortlessly, like his motion is so smooth, like you got to be a little bit more consistent. And he's just not right now. And I don't feel comfortable with him coming in key spots later on in the season from any distance. If he comes in from like 55, I actually might feel a little bit more confident because he doesn't have to think as much and he just has to unload on the ball. But if he's kicking it from like 42 yards in a critical situation, I'm just not going to have that much confidence that he's going to make it. And that's not a fun world to live in.
It's not. And I'm not going to have a lot of confidence in him moving forward. I mean, that could just be hopefully we're only scoring touchdowns because I don't have a lot of faith in that guy moving forward. And I hope I've proven wrong. I've been proven wrong by a lot of Notre Dame kickers over the years. So maybe that will continue to trend that way. Although Blake Groupie, tough one yesterday too. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, tough one yesterday for Groupie. Okay. So I did give a shout out to the Notre Dame corners. We got to talk about the Notre Dame safeties and specifically DJ Brown. And I saw a tweet that basically was like, I don't want to put all the blame on one player, but I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that with DJ Brown. But we also have to address the fact that he dropped the game-winning interception. And no, it was not thrown perfectly at his face mask, but how many interceptions are?
Pretty darn close.
He did not have to jump that high.
If you look at the other players' reactions on that play, like Ben Morrison, his own reaction, it was, I mean, they don't script him like that.
It was pretty much in that moment when I was like, that was it. Yep. I was feeling really confident that even if Ohio State got like a couple first downs, I really felt like the defense, they had been playing so well for the entire game. And I kept telling my dad, I was like, McCord's going to make a mistake. He's going to make a mistake. He's so due. He had done it earlier in the game, and DJ Brown dropped that one, although that one was much tougher. He's laying out to get that one in the end zone. But it hit his hands, and then Ohio State kicks a field goal right after that, so they get 3 points there. That was the mistake. The Notre Dame defense forced Kyle McCord into a mistake, and DJ Brown dropped the pick. But I also felt like Ramon Henderson, not the best game by him. He was the lowest graded, or he had the lowest PFF grade of anybody on the entire defense. And yes, I know PFF grades are certainly not perfect, but I thought that was pretty telling. And on the 3rd and 19 play that, frankly, is going to haunt my dreams for the rest of eternity, Ramon Henderson was playing like 5 yards off the guy. And I'm not going to pretend like I know exactly where he needed to be, but I feel like the goal line, maybe not giving that one up, would probably have been a good idea. So Henderson is back. It allows Ibuka to catch the ball, puts him on the one. Ohio State wins the game. And Xavier Watts, I wouldn't say it was like a bad game by him. It was certainly a forgettable one. There was never a moment where I was like, wow, great play by Xavier Watts. So he wasn't terrible, but he did miss the tackle that led to Travion Henderson's touchdown run. And he was just never the playmaker that Notre Dame needed on the back end of the defense. So it was a rough game for Notre Dame safeties, which is really unfortunate given the performance of the cornerbacks and how close they were to really bottling up that Ohio State passing attack.
Yeah, on that 3rd and 19, it didn't seem to me like Ramon Henderson knew where he was on the field between the first down marker and the end zone, and he drifted like as if he was defending the end zone. One thing I will say, because this confused me in the moment, and I meant to look this up before we did this, but I forgot to do it. So on the intentional grounding, how many yards is an intentional grounding penalty? Like, does it depend on where the ball is? Or
I think it's from the point of the grounding, like where he's tackled.
And how many yards is it supposed to be?
Wherever the quarterback, or it's either, I think it's a 10-yard penalty, or if it's beyond 10 yards, it's where the quarterback threw the ball, like where he was essentially getting sacked.
Because that just like the spotting on that seemed off to me. I thought they should have been further back, to be honest.
I could be wrong. If we got a rules expert, let us know.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that dropped pick is going to, yeah, I'm not going to sleep this week. But anyways, and that's just such a waste of an opportunity. Such a waste of an opportunity that entire night. Notre Dame had every business winning this game. We don't need to relitigate the whole putting 10 guys on the field 2 plays in a row. I don't know how that happens in a billion, trillion, zillion years. Like, how does nobody that's up top or anybody see that? It's just, and like, I kind of get it in the sense that it was a very intense moment. And like, you're so locked in that maybe you're not paying attention to that, but like, I'm just amazed nobody noticed that. And I don't know.
Something I was thinking about, if Gabe Rubio was never hurt, again, this is just like revisionist history. If he wasn't hurt, was there any question that he should be in that game? Because Notre Dame calls a timeout. Coming out of the timeout, the first thing you're going to do is call the personnel grouping that needs to be on the field. Maybe because Rubio was out for a couple weeks, that personnel grouping, the defense wasn't 100% sure which player needed to get in there. And I think that this has been kind of lost in Marcus Freeman's explanation of what happened there, and the fact that it didn't make a whole lot of sense in the postgame. It made a little bit more sense on Monday when he admitted to not knowing that Notre Dame had 10 players out on the pass play, and then admitting that by the time they figured out, it was right before the last play and it was too late. So I get that. I think I'm actually pretty certain that some of this blame is on a specific player. I'm not going to speculate as to who that player is. I only mentioned Gabe Rubio because he was hurt, and I just think that that could have created like a chain reaction. I'm not saying that he was definitely the one who's supposed to be out there, but you would think that maybe before that never would have came up. So clearly there was a player who should have been out there that wasn't, and it's yes on the coaches to provide some sort of oversight, but it is also on whoever player was supposed to be out there that either wasn't paying attention or didn't know.
There's a bearing of responsibility there. Why they were in nickel to begin with there, though, I don't get that either. Like, especially as Ohio State's subbing. Anyways, just like there were so many breaks. Like the Cade Stover catch where it gets stuck on his helmet. You got to be kidding me. Like, what on earth? Too. The 4th and 7 play. How? I just like, there were so many freaking plays in that game that just didn't go our way. And they still only got in by a half an inch with 10 guys on the field.
Can you imagine what would have happened
if they stopped them?
Yeah, with that.
And then Ryan Day looks like a real dumbass.
Before we put the finishing touches on Notre Dame's loss to Ohio State, I wanted to remind you about our new show at the Locked On Podcast Network called College Football Kickoff Live, which airs every Friday from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern on every Locked On College YouTube channel. College Football Kickoff Live will cover everything going on in the sport and go in-depth like only Locked On can, including insight and analysis from our stable of college hosts covering their team every day. Today's episode is also brought to you by DoorDash. Love the convenience of getting what you want right to your door. With DoorDash grocery delivery, you could stock up for the week or order last-minute cravings conveniently. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get grocery delivery that actually delivers too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood and boost your local economy with each and every order. You'll get exactly what you ordered, or we'll make it right. So sit back and enjoy quality groceries just like you picked them yourself. Want even more value? You could save on all your grocery and restaurant favorites with a $0 delivery fee on all eligible orders with a Dash Pass membership. With easy substitutions right in the app and best-in-class customer support, DoorDash delivers groceries exactly how you want it. Get 50% off your first DoorDash order up to a $20 value when you use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE at checkout. Limited time offer, terms apply. That's 50% off up to $20, no minimum subtotal, and $0 delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter promo code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE. Don't forget, that's code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for 50% off your first order with DoorDash. What's the next thing you don't like?
Well, I think you can imagine. It's that clown, Ryan Day, who, by the way, you're still not a tough team. You're running outside sweeps on 4th and 1. You got stuffed on 4th and 1 twice, and you only scored on half an inch because Notre Dame had 10 freaking guys out there. I understand that I mean, it's just obviously like bizarre behavior to go at an 86-year-old man who really didn't even personally call you out. He was just stating facts that this is what happens when they play more physical teams. And it was true for 56 minutes. And frankly, it should have been true if Notre Dame had kept running the ball on the offensive drive before. he has problems with his own fan base questioning him. And that's really where that's coming from. But what a weirdo. And just the whole Ohio against the world thing. You have more talent than 98% of the country, man. Shut up. Like, it's just, I don't know. That really, I never really had a problem with Ryan Day before, but that whole thing just really rubbed me the wrong way. And the doubling down was even weirder. So when they get smacked by Michigan again this year, I'm sure that will be really fun.
The way I look at the Ryan Day situation, I think two things can be true. I don't think Lou Holtz should have said that on the Pat McAfee show because he's a coach. Like, you got to understand, even though Lou is a bit seasoned, let's say, you got to know to not give an opposing coach, to call him out by name. I didn't like that move at the time. Like, before the game even started, I was like, wow, Lou really calling out Day like that. That was a little aggressive. Also, Day's reaction after the game was over the top. That's all true. And I think what happened was during the game, after that 4th and 1, when he ran that end around and it came up short, I think Day realized in that moment how bad the reaction was going to be if Ohio State had lost. Like, his fan base would have ran him out of town because that end around play exemplifies all the criticisms that people have had about Day and his program. That on a 4th and 1, they wouldn't just run it up the middle and try to out-physical the other team. So I think he realized that. Fortunately, he got bailed out. Fortunately for him, I should say. He gets bailed out, and he gets to have that moment. But you're right. I'm just sort of over it with Ryan Day. Like, whatever, man. Well, I do want to say, speaking of offenses getting too cute, that is something I didn't like. And it wasn't just the last drive. Like, you and I have already talked about the screen pass. We weren't as against it as some people were, but when you look at the results and how it was executed, I totally understand why people are so staunchly against it. But Notre Dame also got a little too cute on the 2 4th and 1s. The fact that Notre Dame goes 0 for 2 on 4th and short when they have Audric Estime in the backfield is inexcusable. Yes, if the play action had worked, we'd been like, oh, wow, good play call by Jared Parker. As a coach and in that situation, it's a lot more forgivable if you run a Estime and you get stuffed both times than if you try to get too cute and then you get stuffed. It's just unforgivable especially in a game of that magnitude when the games are decided on the margins and Notre Dame doesn't give the ball to who they are calling the best running back in the country. It's just inexcusable.
Or hell, even do that Mitchapalooza package that you did 7 times last year and got every time. Just put his big ass in there and get the first down that way. But you're right. Not going away from the strengths. It was frustrating not to at least see that given a chance, especially given how the offensive line was playing. But yeah, I'm not going to tell anybody who thinks that that screen pass was the wrong call that they're wrong. Like, I think you're entitled to that opinion, and that's a fair one. The way I view it was I thought that was a game-ending play call. And if it's executed, we're having a totally different conversation. But like I said, not going to tell you you're wrong if that's how you feel.
All right, well, we're running out of time here, and I feel like we said all we need to say about Ohio State. It's time to start looking ahead a little bit. How do you think Notre Dame is going to respond from this loss?
And I think they are going to smoke Duke. I think they should all be furious that they just pissed a huge opportunity away, and now they have to be perfect the rest of the way here to really have a shot at making something meaningful out of this season. They are so much more talented than Duke. It frankly helps that this is the biggest home game and maybe biggest game period in Duke football history, because that should sharpen your focus even further on top of already being pissed. And I know that Drew Tranquil quote from the post-2017 Georgia loss has been making the rounds. And I think that's the sort of response you're going to see from this team. There's just too much talent to go any other way. I think they are going to beat the pants off of Duke.
This is a great time to have a 6-year senior quarterback and a bunch of veterans on defense. I think that's really going to show itself this weekend. So I'm confident that Notre Dame will bounce back. I'm not as confident that they're going to smoke Duke, and a big reason why is just because Al Golden really tightened up that rotation, and a lot of the starters played a ton of snaps. Like, Nana Osafo-Mensah played 5 plays. Jack Kaiser played 10. He really tightened it up, and I think that there's going to be just a physical toll that game is going to take, that I'm sure mentally they're going to be sharp, but I think that it's going to be a close game against Duke. I do think Notre Dame's going to win. I think the real statement win is going to come the following week against Louisville, which, by the way, we found out night game, prime time, ESPN A team is going to be on that call. I think that's when they really make a statement, but we will have to see. But I am confident that this Notre Dame team is going to bounce back, and then they got USC coming in a couple weeks, and they absolutely have to win that one.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm still pretty pissed, but that's it.
That's the next time you'll be in that stadium. Are you even mentally ready for that?
I'm not. Yeah, I'll be okay that night, I hope. Although Saturday night was very, very much a roller coaster and not one that I enjoyed ultimately.
Yeah. Well, Luke, I appreciate the energy. I appreciate the passion, and we'll do this again soon.
Sounds good. Hopefully on better terms.
Okay, that's a wrap for this episode of Locked On Irish. And now we can finally start to turn our heads to the Duke game that's coming up this coming Saturday. I'll have my first preview episode out tomorrow. And to stay up to date on every new episode, please subscribe to the show on YouTube or wherever you're listening to the podcast. Also, you can follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Irish, on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod, and my personal Twitter account at Tyler, WOJCIAK. I'll see you guys tomorrow.